Hey everybody, I'm Jason Clouse, and this is Close to the Heart on YouTube.com. If I was to say the name Tyler Shanteau, you may not know exactly who I'm talking about, but for the fans of the Michigan Wrestling Organization and Imperial Wrestling Entertainment, you do know the name Tyler Dean. One of the most popular, one of the most energetic wrestling superstars currently competing in the independent scene in the state of Michigan. But outside the ring, Tyler is one of the most inspiring people that you will ever know. Here on this episode, for the first time ever, he goes into great detail about some of the personal struggles and challenges outside the ring that helped form who he would become inside of it. I think you are going to take a lot away from Tyler's conversation, and I'm very excited to present it to you on this season premiere of the Close to the Heart show here on YouTube.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the Close to the Heart show here on YouTube.com, and joining me from his home in Monroe, Michigan, one of the greatest guys that I have ever had the privilege of meeting, and he has a tremendous story. Very much looking forward to talking to him today. And Tyler Shanteau, also known as MWO and IWE superstar Tyler Dean. Welcome to the show, Tyler. How are we doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, Jason. I really appreciate you having me on. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I've been watching all your shows on YouTube and the podcast, and you've been really inspiring on a lot of things you've been talking about. And I've really wanted to be a part of it for a while, so I really appreciate you having me on.
The pleasure is all on this side of the camera, my friend. It really is. Now, Tyler, you have a unique story, and especially with your personal, your personal story and things of this nature. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but when you advertise things like this, obviously the first ones that are going to watch the show are your fans, your wrestling fans. So
Absolutely.
let's spend the first part of the show here talking about the wrestling end of your story. Now, growing up, I assumed, in some way, shape, or form, you started watching pro wrestling. How did that whole thing? Where did your love for wrestling start?
So what's funny about that is anyone who meets me knows that I'm a gigantic wrestling fan. Obviously, being a wrestler as well, but I didn't actually start watching wrestling until I was 14.
Okay.
So I've been pretty late in the game where most people begin their love with wrestling, and it was just a random weeknight. I had school the next morning, and I was with my mom at the time. I just kind of flipped on the TV, and it happened to be USA Network on Monday Night Raw. It was the highlight reel of Chris Jericho.
Okay.
And the guy I'd always known wrestling existed, obviously, and I'm sitting there watching like, this is fucking cool. I yelled the other room, and me and my brother were sharing a room at the time, and I woke him up. Hey, check this out! And we started watching it, and then he fell in love with it too. And then every Monday, at the time, it was Tuesday night SmackDown. No, Thursday night SmackDown. And so we were hooked after watching the highlight reel of Chris Jericho one time, and we watched every week, watched every pay-per-view, and so we both. And so if I was 14, so he would have been 11. And
so what years are we talking about here?
that would have been like 04, 05.
Okay.
So right around the time of, I believe the first pay-per-view we actually saw was we started watching a few weeks before the Royal Rumble that year. That was the year that Cena had won, and well, really they tied and they did the redo, and it was Batista and Cena in the final, and Cena went on to face JBL, Batista on to face Triple H.
Right.
And I fell in love with Triple H right out of the gate. I mean, despite the persona I do and when it comes to WWE, I'm a sucker for an awesome heel. And
Right.
to this day, Triple H is still, even though like other guys like Rey Mysterio have obviously inspired my in ring, given my stature, Triple H is still my all time favorite wrestler of all time.
That was going to lead me to my next question. You know, when you found wrestling, very different era than when I fell in love with it, but our stories are very similar to where you found it first and then brought your brother into the fold. I did the exact same thing. I didn't wake him up or nothing, but I came home that day. I'm like, dude, we need to start checking this out. So when you told that story, I was like, man, that very reminiscent, right? Okay, you say, obviously it was Y2J and the whole highlight reel thing that sucked you in, and Triple H is one of your favorites. Was there any other guys during that era that, those were your must-see guys?
Well, and I had mentioned the guy like Rey Mysterio, and it was seeing Rey Mysterio that kind of told me that I could do this. Like because he was significantly smaller than just about the entire roster. So I started watching Rey Mysterio. Then all of a sudden you see Rey wrestling. All of a sudden you see the cruiserweights come out. Like, oh shoot, they have a cruiserweight championship. Like shit, I can get this. But to back up just quick briefly, even though we had started watching late though, we had gotten so hooked early on that we were going to Blockbuster Video and renting all of the like the 80s, 90s stuff. Like we wanted to know like how did we get here. So even though we started late, me and Aaron had watched a lot of stuff beforehand just to kind of to kind of catch us up. Like so we got to watch the Hulk Hogan's and Flair's and stuff like that just later on, just on DVD. So we do it. So it was that 2004 era that hooked us in, but then watch everything back is like, okay, like this is wrestling has always been fantastic. It's not just now. But no, guys like Rey Mysterio got me hooked on. Aaron always kind of felt more towards like the Hardy Boys, which I did too. But Aaron fell in love with guys like Jeff Hardy a lot more than I did, and you can kind of see that in his persona as well.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that you can tell that's where when you said the Hardys and things like that, I'm like, well, you're fitting him to a T. So I can appreciate that.
I always joke that whenever we're working with someone that even though me and Aaron are both high flyers, we're different kinds of high flyers. Mm-hmm. He's more the dives and whatnot, and I'm more that I can't even put into words like that Ray style that like grapple on hook, Hurricanrana, flip-de-doo kind of stuff.
It's pretty admirable. I find it to be very admirable that at your age and in the time that you discovered wrestling and you became a fan of it, that you actually had a genuine, a desire to learn where you had gotten to that point. What was wrestling during the Attitude Era, and then in the 80s when it really became a pop culture thing. I mean, everybody started to hop on the bandwagon that, okay, this is not just a joke. This is very serious, but it's, the coolest form of live entertainment that you will ever see, right?
Absolutely.
So I really appreciate that fact. And as you guys went back and kind of did your research and watched old videos, old tapes like that, was there anybody from a previous era that really stood out to you that you were, if you were going to do this individual or these people would be influential in how I would approach the business?
Yeah, so I had mentioned Ray, and I fell in love with the high flying. So I was like, okay, like I want to be a high flyer. It's what I want to do. I mean, I'm built just like Rey Mysterio. I mean, yet we're short and whatever it may be. But watching back, it was guys like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart that kind of solidified the importance of the technical side. Like you can be as athletic as you want in the world, but if you don't got the whole package per se, you're gonna struggle.
Right.
And like, so I knew that Bret Hart, and especially, and guys like Owen and Dean Malenko kind of taught me that lesson of the technical side of it too. The storytelling, the psychology is more important than the flashy.
Very good point. Now, you mentioned Malenko. So WCW was really known for the cruiserweights, and you being so inspired by that division. At what point? I mean, were you able to find some material on the old, on the old WCW side of things? I mean, when did that come into play?
So the WCW side of things, Blockbuster helped a lot, and then there's kind of finding like old DVDs, like because what eventually happened was, so now me and Aaron are getting hooked to wrestling. We're going back to school, doing our normal Monday through Fridays, junior high school, whatever it might be at the time, and you start learning like, oh, other people enjoy wrestling too.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns into, oh, you need to watch this DVD and this DVD. You can borrow this one, and it's like, and you realize like, okay, at this time period, wrestling's a lot more popular than you ever thought when you're not paying attention to it.
Right.
But now you're looking for it; it's everywhere. At that point in time, wrestling had a very big following.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, and it just fascinates me to hear other people's, how they got involved with wrestling, how they became a fan, what was it that triggered it, who was it that they were drawn to. So, I'm always fascinated by that side of it because it's individualized. How you fell into it is different than how I fell into it, and it's, in our stories will be different from everybody else's because it's just based on what's happening at that time in our lives. I came into it very young. You were a little bit older. So, I mean, that right there, and especially in 04, 05, it's sports entertainment on a grand scheme of things. And, we can debate whether or not that's good or bad, based on what it used to be and how it used to be presented. But was it, was it an immediate thing when you decided, I want to try this, I want to do this, and I'm going to find out how I need to get involved in the actual business?
It wasn't. It was a few years later. I had just graduated high school, and well, to quickly back up, I kind of wrote it off for a while because so like obviously I was like studying and looking at like what it takes to be a full package wrestler, and there was one aspect of what I deemed to be a full package wrestler that I felt I could do, but I felt like I had certain limitations to prevent me from doing that. And it's something that me and you are kind of the same on. And some of my favorites, and like guys like Piper and Flair, who could talk to the Earthmen, and they were some of the best talkers in the business. The Rock, and then more modern like your guys like Punk and Jericho. Being able to talk, being able to be a mic spin was important.
Yeah.
And I knew it was important, and as you know, and as anyone who's talked to me in a deep conversation knows, I have quite the stutter problem, as you can relate to as well.
Right.
And something that I've been self-conscious on for a very long time, and I just kind of like, I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm sitting there and wrestling in front of a bunch of people, having cut a promo and sitting there stuttering and in my head looking stupid. I convinced myself I was going to go out there and look stupid.
Right.
And obviously, looking at where things are at now, and that was a bad opinion that I created in my head. But when you're 14, 15 years old, then you kind of can get lost in your own, like. So I'm trying to think of the word I want to use for like. a lot of times you're your own hardest critic. Like you're like things are more obvious to you than they are to everyone else.
Right.
And to me, that was such a major thing that I'm like, you know what? There's no way it's ever going to happen.
So
And
you pretty much had psyched yourself out before you even stepped up to the plate.
exactly.
You're right. Look, I can understand that. I can understand that wholeheartedly, and you're right in the aspect that we are our own worst critic, because to us it's very detrimental because we're dealing with it. Those who don't have a speech impediment or anything of the like, they will never be able to fully comprehend the internal struggle, right? Because I mean, it just you get hung up on something and it starts to become, magnified in your mind, which in turn is making it actually worse than what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know with you, because you and I have cut promos against one another in the ring, and we've had no problem whatsoever.
No,
So
I still dream of that Christmas promo you cut. That was some of the best stuff I've ever heard.
listen, Jeff and I spent a lot of time working on that promo before we went out and actually did it, because we knew what we wanted to do. We knew we were going to have fun with the whole thing. But do you find, Tyler, that when you are in a performance, type of environment, that you kind of go into a different mode, like mentally? Because I know I do. Because I mean, yeah, I'll get hung up on a word or something during a promo, but it's not nearly the struggle in a performance setting than it would be if it was in a one-on-one conversation.
No, for sure. So I mentioned how I psych myself out and stuff, but obviously I mentioned we mentioned that, we'll get to the more personal stuff later, but um, as you know me now, it doesn't sound like me at all to psych myself out over something. Normally, I'm quick to just. But that was a different era in my life before a lot of things happened. So it was just kind of a different time period. But no, shoot, you've seen me on dozens and dozens of occasions at this point before a big match, before any match. Big matches got to me more, but you'd always see me in this kind of nervous psyche state. But for whatever reason, I can't explain it. But the second I hear that Motley Crue, or I just recently changed it to a classic Donkey Kong song. Whenever I hear that music go and I blast that curtain, for whatever reason, any concern I just had, I can't even remember what it was.
Right.
Like I'm in a whole different mindset now.
Adrenaline is a funny thing.
it,
Okay.
it definitely is.
And listen, as far as the speech thing goes, I've been dealing with this my whole life. I'm in my 40s now, so I've had a lot of time to sit there and I've done a lot of research as to why people stutter. Why do we have these speech impediments? And furthermore, doing a deeper dive into it, why does it not happen as frequently in a public setting, or in our case when we're talking into a microphone? And what I have discovered, and it makes perfect sense, is when we are talking into a microphone and our voices are being thrown back at us through loudspeakers, and we hear that, it triggers something in our brain to where we hear that echo. I mean, just a split second of that echo makes all the difference in the world, and I don't know why. They have made these things that put in people's ears that have these impediments that are far worse than what you and I deal with. Like these people, God bless them, they cannot spit out a whole sentence, but they put this thing in their ear and it creates that echo, and they can talk perfectly fine. It's the most screwed up thing I've ever seen.
That
But
that's insane.
it really is. But okay. Um, Now take me through your journey when you decided that you were going to get involved in the business, you were going to go through the motions of becoming a professional wrestler. Was Aaron with you from day one? Because you guys have been attached at the hip for the better part of your careers. Was he involved with you when you decided that this is what you wanted to do, or kind of take me through that whole process?
Oh, he 100% was. This was back when this was B-Dubs was doing the pay-per-views every we go to B-Dubs every month, watch pay-per-views, and a table next to us, we're allowed at B-Dubs cheering for people, and I was shitting on Jeff Hardy just to piss Aaron off, and just normal stuff like that. And this two guys approached our table. One of them was a complete jackass, but
okay,
like the two guys were, one of them was Josh, which a lot of people know as the Riggs became, who had a short time, and you've known Josh on quite a while now. The other guy, Justin, will ignore him, but they had approached us, and, oh, we heard you like wrestling, and Justin had at his grandma's house, he had built a ring. It was like, by a ring, we're talking bare minimum.
Okay.
Like, posts cemented in the ground, just boards across. Boards broke every third match.
I can relate.
And I know the backyard wrestling thing is a bad stigma, but I'm kind of at the point in my wrestling career where I don't care to bring it up. It's part of my history. It's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
And because the normal stigma is just like, everyone, backyard wrestling is just blah blah blah, weapons, blah blah blah, don't care. But me, Aaron, and Josh, and a couple others were there too, like Tyler Yost,
yep.
Chris Lamson.
Yep.
They were there as well, and me and Aaron said, and Josh, like, look, like, we want to do this right. So we were studying tape, and like, okay, well, this is how they're locking up. This is how they're doing this. Like, we were trying to do things properly, which is typically much different than you see most of the stigma'd backyard wrestling doing. And so because we wanted to do it right, and I, in a way, and then there was a lot of falling out too, because us and Justin kind of got into it. He was that part of the story is not really as relevant, but it turned into like, well, I still want to do it, and so the promotion had ended because of just drama and whatnot. But me and Aaron, like, well, we still want to wrestle. Like, we're basically hooked now. Like, right. We started doing this even in a small dose. Like, we got to keep this going. So I had just bought my first house. It was probably 6-7 years ago now, and I just graduated college. Like, screw it. I built the same cheap contraption that I just got done wrestling that I complain about every week in my backyard, and we just kind of continued it. Mm-hmm. We kind of cut out the cancer, and like, no, we're gonna have fun with this. We're gonna kind of do what we want, and we kind of continued on, and then it was good for a while, and then apparently the neighbors didn't like a homemade wrestling ring in the backyards. They went to the township, and
for crying
right?
out loud!
Like, we're not hurting anybody. We're not being loud. And so I had to tear it down, and then it was probably a good 6 to 8 months of just like, well, that was fun while it lasted. And then a friend I went to high school with, she had gotten a new boyfriend, and her boyfriend's name was by the guy by the name of Mark Jablonski.
Yeah.
Who for a while in NWO was known as Zero Briggs.
Yes. Yep.
And just despite opinions on the guy and people may have, I just met him, and I was good friends with his wife, and he goes, hey, like, what you guys are doing here is pretty cool and whatnot. And I got a tryout match with the NWO up in we're going to be in Lake. You guys had it was a back-to-back show. You were you did the Lake Orion taping at ONTV. And the very next day was Christmas Clash. This had been the end of 2015.
Okay.
Which looking back, a back-to-back show day wasn't something that was done very often. So he goes, hey, just come out to Lake Orion. You can ride. You can. I actually parked my car at Lake Orion and left it there. It's like, you can ride with me up to Flint the next day. So I sat there and kind of butt my head in the studio and just kind of watched. The first match I watched was a TV title match between Stuntman Mike and Laura Phoenix. And after the show, and this was just me at the time, because what was the word choice? Because Aaron goes, you should, I'm gonna make an ass of myself. Which anybody who knows me here and personally knows that I'm typically the more calm-headed one.
Right.
And we had met briefly, and you were busy as you typically are on a show day, and then you said, hey, come up tomorrow, and we can get you some ring time. So I took you up on that. I drove up with Mark, and I didn't get a chance to get any ring time in because you had to do something, so I couldn't get a chance to sign the waiver.
Gotcha.
And then last minute, Mark had talked to you, and I had thrown some gear on, but it was right at the end. But you guys had to get ready for the show, and then I was talking with Big Mark for a while, Apocalypse.
Yes.
And then we talked briefly, and then I kind of just went and just kind of sat in the back, just kind of hanging out as a new guy, and all of a sudden I get a hand on the shoulder from Big Mark. He goes, so we have a guy here that he used to be here, but he's here tonight. He's gonna do a one-time match, and it was Aaron Orion. He goes, so we need an extra body. Oh no! So actually, me and Zero Briggs got to do a tryout match, just a quick little 3-4 minute just run through, and the whole roster was sitting around the ring. And that I felt that went okay. I had a lot of criticism myself, which I typically do. And first time in like a professional wrestling stance instead of just in what I consider the backyard stuff. And like, okay, it went okay. Maybe they'll give me a chance in a few months. So I'm sitting in the back, and Bart goes, "Hey, Aaron Ryan's here. We need an extra body for a 6-man tag." I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, you think you look pretty good in your tryout match. So we're gonna give you a match on the card. I said, you mean like on the actual show, like being recorded? He goes, yeah. I go, shit, okay. Nervous as fuck, and I got, and especially when I'm used to like the biggest guy in the locker room being Josh, who's not. Right. So who am I wrestling? Oh, I'm you. Oh, okay. Because it was Apocalypse, Jack Price is right at the beginning of doing Salt and Pepper, and Aaron Orion versus I was a one night member of Positive Promotions. It was me, JJ Hughes, and Jesse Brown.
I'll tell you what, as far as your first match on the national card, you couldn't ask for better people to share the ring with. The amount of talent that was laid out. And I remember bits and pieces of that, of how that whole thing unfolded. And I remember Mark coming up to me, because we had that open spot in the 6-man, and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do, if we were going to throw another guy who already had a match, but throw him under a mask, and just to fill that spot. And I remember Mark coming up and said, "What about that kid? Talking about you." And I don't think I was able to watch the tryout match because I had to go on his word that it was going to be okay. And if memory serves, I think that's how it unfolded. And I said, "Are you willing to go to bat for this kid?" And he said, "Absolutely." So I was like, "All right, if you say," because he was a part of the board of officials. To his judgment, he had never steered me wrong. I had no reason not to believe him, And he had been in the company for so long. He was one of those locker room leaders. So he really put a stake into you,
and that means a lot looking back, because the way I know Mark, he's a harsh critic.
Yeah.
I've learned that like he's harsh but fair, but like he's gonna hold you to a standard, and like the fact that on a small random trial match he goes, yeah, let's do it. Like looking back at it, like I'm thinking as you're bringing it up, like man, that I must have did something at least decent enough, but that match, like I didn't know who Aaron Orion was. I didn't know who anybody was. I was watching him for the first time, and Aaron pulls me aside, goes, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do," and he just kind of walks me because he knew that I was very very new.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because my first match, he taught me a move that I still do to this day. The whole breakaway, chop the chest, grab the hand and run up the corner.
Yeah.
Orion taught me that day one. He did it that day, and run up the corner, jump off, do the Rana. And I've been doing that to this day, and the variation of it's changed, but I learned that day, and that's when I knew, like, okay, like, I don't want to sound too conceited on this, but like that was the day, like, okay, like, I'm better than I'm giving myself credit for. Like I have the balance that I didn't think I had. I have the agility and the strength to do things I would have never tried because the ring we're in, the ropes would have been essentially in the ropes.
Right.
So like I never even thought of like doing like run up the rope deals. Like it was considered daring if you went to the top rope and did an elbow drop. So like I learned like okay I can do a lot of this agility that I watch people like Rey Mysterio do and stuff like that. Like okay maybe I can do this and so the match went on and that part went good and the end of the match I took the fall because as it makes sense I'm kind of the nobody at that point for lack of a better word.
Right.
To protect everyone else in the match and I got my shit rocked. I ended up in there with Apocalypse and I just I'm sitting there. He goes, all right. I was told it's kind of just a quick little strike and he'll kind of blast me in the corner. I'm sitting there just throwing these petty ass strikes. he goes, fucking hit me.
Right.
And I throw one more shitty ass strike and I just get wham. Like okay, that's my lesson there.
Oh God bless it. That's funny. Funny shit.
And I left that show like I was hurting. Like I haven't been in any sort of ring, let alone a half-ass ring, in at minimum of 6 to 8 months. And your ring was a lot stiffer than what I'm used to because like we were just very like, oh let's put like 8 levels of padding on just to make sure we're fine, which isn't the case in your typical ring.
Right.
Like man, that sucks. Do I want to do this? Like, do I want to feel this sore all the time? Went home like I went home not sure. And I went to sleep, woke up. First thing I did was call Aaron and said, yeah, you got to come up with me. This is pretty freaking cool.
That's fantastic. What a fun story that was. That was, and I mean, for me, I'm certainly glad that you decided to come back because some of my most favorite moments in the latter part of my career have been working with you guys. You know, we had that the match at WrestleRama for the tag team titles. That was fun. We did it. We did the Christmas Clash thing with you. That was a good time. So I mean, anytime that we had an opportunity to share the ring with you and Aaron is always. I mean, it was a day off because we knew what each other could do, and we knew we were going to have a good time. At this point in your career, you've worked with us. You're a huge star with IWE. You and Aaron, you guys had a standout match here a few weeks back, working with the Cream Street Mafia.
I appreciate that.
I really enjoyed watching that match. I mean, take away the fact that I knew all 4 of you guys, but just as somebody, watching that match on that show I could not have been more proud because you guys, killed it. Just a great match. When you look back on your career at this point, is there one match that in your mind that is the best match that you have been a part of? And I realize, Tyler, that I'm kind of putting you on the spot, and
That's okay.
You run the risk of hurting people's feelings. We go, oh well, he didn't pick my match with me. Listen, when you work with dozens of people and you're having match after match after match, you're not going to be able to have everybody in the number one spot. Some people you have better chemistry with for whatever reason than you do with others. So, with that being said, piss on it. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have one match that stands out?
I deserve this though, because I mean, how many times have I just come on to start swinging, and you're the first person I start joking with because I know you can take it.
Right.
No, as much as I want to, so my favorite feud was definitely with you guys, but I feel like that happened in such an early state of our career. We were still kind of getting our footing on things that I feel like we had better matches later. It was like I think of like it was Tricker Slam. Our first Tricker Slam. We were gonna come out and do an open challenge, and you had me cut a promo. Like, yeah, my first promo. You give me a mic. 10 minutes before I gotta go out there and say, hey, cut a promo. I'm like, what? And I was already a nervous wreck because Aaron had to work that day, and Aaron, his schedule can be sporadic at times.
Right.
I'm sitting here like, and he showed up. I don't know if you remember. He showed up 5 minutes. Like the show's already going. He showed up 5 minutes before our match was gonna go off. Yeah. He's putting his boots on. I'm trying to walk him through everything, and as I'm waiting for him to get there, I'm sitting looking at my watch like, "Are you fucking serious? We're wrestling the boss and his brother for the first time ever, and you're gonna be fucking late? Like, are we? And then as I'm sitting there in a nervous wreck, you go, "Hey, microphone." Like, well, shit. But that was my favorite feud for sure. As far as matches, I feel like a lot of the stuff I've done more recently tops that list. For like picking one, it's probably still Christmas Clash. When me and Aaron faced JJ and Scotty Freytown. Okay. You were the special referee of that match. Yep. I feel like we did a lot of really good stuff in that match. That I still have that still stands out as the best tag match I feel like we've ever had. If I'm talking IWE, we had a good full feud and a couple really really good matches with Alex Steele and JJ Hughes. I can't speak enough volumes about JJ. I've never been in the ring with him where I've not had a good match. But so NWO recently, I've been more on the singles thing lately.
Right.
And I was a little nervous about it because tag wrestling is a lot different than singles wrestling.
Yeah.
And you gave me an opportunity pretty early on. We were at Fremont. I still want to see that match, by the way. I need to see this video. But you had me be one of JJ's his first hell defense. So it was me and JJ 1-on-1. Yet here I am bringing up JJ again.
Right.
The kid's incredible. Like I could go for 2 hours talking about how awesome JJ Hughes is.
Sure.
But that match over any tag match I've had, over anything I've done, me versus JJ was my absolute favorite match I've ever done.
Wow.
And I felt so good about it, like because you were on commentary.
Yep.
And I did something I wouldn't normally do. I felt so good about that match. As I was walking out, I went up to the commentary table, and I looked at you and says, "I'm just getting started."
Yep.
And I walked back like, "You really just said that? You're a little asshole." But no, and not that I thought you didn't like the match. I adrenaline was flowing. Like I felt very very good about that, and it seemed like a lot of other people did too. I don't know if as much as well as I felt about it, but I just looking back and thinking about every match I've done, that's it. It's that singles match with JJ in Fremont.
That was that match was not booked on accident. I can tell you that, because when we had all of our ducks in a row to go to Fremont, I mean, this was our first out-of-state show that we would have ever done. And we made a concentrated effort on what match, because it was a road show, we didn't have everybody on board. They couldn't make the drive for one reason or the other. So we were dealing with a smaller than usual roster, which is why we decided, it was going to be Slamathon, because we would do the tournament thing. So it would make sense to have these guys have to work multiple matches because it was a tournament. But when we decided who are we going to put with Hughes for the MWO championship, we needed to be somebody that he's going to work a good match with. Not only did we get that with you, we got a great match. We have one of those matches where the stars were in alignment, and that is one of the matches that stand out on that show. And you go back on that show, I remember thinking as we were driving home that night, there really wasn't a bad match on that show. Everybody brought their A game. There was a hiccup here, there was a botch here, but I mean, you get that. We're human. We're going to make some mistakes, but
comes to territory.
We really, and Jeff and I talked about this. We made the right decision when we decided that it was going to be you in that spot versus Jeremy. We knew that was the right call, and we also knew that this guy, he could be a tag team star, which you had already been. Now we're going to see what you can do on your own. So that's where that whole thought process came from. And then, Jeff really, he thought a lot of you, and that's how you got to the TV championship, most recently. So, I mean, he had always been a big advocate for you. And, when it came time to all right, Jeff, who were you going to drop the title to? Without question, it's got to be Tyler. And, he made the right call. We made the right call. And, here you are. And you're you haven't even approached your peak yet, your prime, I don't think.
I'm glad you think that, because even when I have some good stuff, the nerves hit me, and I continue to kind of hit myself in the face with that whole biggest critic. I sometimes I feel like I've already hit my peak, but people like you and Jeff especially, just to touch on that briefly, this year's been hard. I can't imagine for even more so for you. But Jeff was a very important person to me. I know we talk about how much you mean to me, but Jeff was kind of that behind the scenes, just as important.
Sure.
Jeff has always had my back when it comes to the things that we never had a chance where we do things on a personal level, but professionally, Jeff has always been one of my biggest supporters. When Aaron first stepped away and then came back, but when the whole single thing started, I was very concerned that I wouldn't be able to handle doing a singles workload. Jeff was one of the ones that pretty much told me to fuck off. You're going to be fine, and. Right. And then it was because it was at ONTV. He said, "Hey, Jason's going to talk to you, but I want to see your reaction first. I'm dropping the TV title to you, but I think you've earned it." And a whole big spiel about how much he's proud of what I've done. He goes, right. But when you go in there, when Jason pulls you in, you cannot let him know I told you. You must act as surprised as if you're just found out the first time.
The more stories I hear, the more I hear that similar thing. I'm going to tell him first, but don't tell Jason that because he'll be mad at me. What a jackass. But
in hindsight, are you really surprised?
No, not really. That was him. That was him. All right, Tyler, what we're going to do here, we're going to take a quick break here on the Clouse to the Heart show. When we come back on the other side of the break, Tyler, we're going to get more personal with your story. Talk about your upbringing, talk about a variety of subjects. You cool with that?
Absolutely.
All right, don't go away. We will be right back with more of the Clouse to the Heart show on YouTube.com. Are you looking for exclusive MWO t-shirts of your favorite wrestlers and superstars? There's only one place to check out all the latest shirts and designs available featuring your favorite MWO superstars. Look for Jacko Creations, and you can see all of their new products at facebook.com/Jacko Creations. Welcome back to Clouse to the Heart here on YouTube.com. I'm being joined by Tyler Shanteau. You know him probably better as Tyler Dean, but we're going to put Tyler Dean off to the side here. Let's talk about Tyler the man. You have a very unique story. You and I have touched on it. You talked a little bit about different things in your personal, in your childhood when you were a kid. But you started off kind of in your teenage years, your younger teenage years. So as we embark on this, on the personal end of your journey, talk me through your, did you grow up? What kind of things do you remember being involved in, or anything of the like before the wrestling thing became a focal point?
So from a basic childhood stance, I mean, on the surface, everything is kind of your normal everyday average. I did t-ball, I did karate and stuff like that. I'm the oldest of three. Got myself, Aaron, who's 3 years younger than me, and then I have a sister who's 3 years younger than him. So 6 years separates the three of us. So what's interesting with us is I was born just before my parents got married, which, depending on anyone's beliefs, that could be a wrench in things. And for them it turned into like, well, and I admire them both for the effort. They like, well, this is our family. We're gonna create it as is, even if it's not ideal. And they, as in short terms, they forced it to work for longer than they should have.
Right.
They had the three of us, which is nice. And we got to grow up together, and they eventually got divorced. I was 11 at the time when they got divorced. And you're talking to, like, and you could kind of see it as we were growing up, and me a little more so than Aaron and Melissa, because me being the oldest, a little more aware. You could see that their personalities, their lifestyle didn't mesh. Sure. You're talking two complete opposite type of people. It'd be like the difference between, it'd be like me and Orville getting married.
Okay.
Like, I love Orville to death, but personality wise, I'm very just, and Orville's a little more calm and collected.
Yeah.
Neither are bad, but they're just very different.
Sure.
And so over time, it didn't work. It ended with a lot. This what you normally hear in your typical separation is just fight. Eventually, and it turned into quite a nasty divorce. The details of that aren't incredibly relevant, but it turned into the three of us floating around school, and so even though I was very how I am now, like when I was a younger kid, I mean, it's just kind of what my personality does. Because of all the moving around, I got so discouraged on making new friends that I shut down. So the Tyler you would see in like late elementary, junior high was afraid to talk, didn't want to communicate, nervous to even talk to people. Just kind of just stayed in my corner and just kind of like I'm just gonna get through it, and which anyone who knows me is not who I am. It's like, and because I was very outgoing as a kid, I mean, a lot of it was me just kind of bottling it in, is afraid to get close to anybody because I watched my parents get divorced. I started making friends, and then psych, 3 months later, nope, you're going to be at this school now, and
you can imagine how hard that must have been, because growing up, we're very much influenced by our environments, and having a decent friendship with somebody, as well as anybody, based on what you're saying, how important that is. Because when you don't feel like you have that connection, man, you go into what you're describing, just feel like it's a shutdown mode. So I can totally understand that. And man, I had no idea. Like I'm listening to you and I'm just like, this is so fascinating because this is not you. You know what
No,
I'm
that
saying?
version means not like, and it got to the point where like, it's not even worth even trying to make relationships that, and I was still going through a lot. Like we're talking a divorce that, even though it was done and final, whatever it was, but you're talking a divorce and this the anger of it being the better part of 10 years. Like just you got two forces going at it. Sometimes it's just never ending nonsense. And the blame each side doesn't matter. It's just there's just a lot of just childish, should have done handled better.
Sure.
And I got caught and of course when stuff like that's going on, you need someone to vent to. You got to let it out somewhere. And of course I'm the oldest, so I'm my mom was very busy working, and that's who we lived with for most of it. That I kind of got defaulted into taking care of Aaron and Melissa. I was making dinner every night. I was doing this. I was helping them get ready for bed, and not something a 12, 13-year-old should be completely tasked with.
Sure.
And of course, that had a negative time, and it's a lot to put on someone. And so I found myself confiding in teachers, which it sounds weird when you think about it on the surface, but those are the only people I consistently saw every day. So over time, even like I felt like that was the relationships I had, and sometimes they helped, sometimes they didn't, but it wasn't it. It was one of the more darkest times of my life. There, is I didn't know what the light of the tunnel, end of the tunnel looked like, and and that's why you see like so me and my sister are just as close as me and
Okay.
and that's why like and me and Aaron are super close as you see and that's why we're so super close, because we spent so much time in such a dark period of our lives together that it builds a natural just super bond.
Yeah.
Like, and granted, most siblings have a pretty good bond. It wasn't until later in life that I realized that having that super bond isn't standard with siblings. It's not always that case. Like I've come to realize that me and Aaron are closer than we're on the above average end of the spectrum on being that close with siblings. Like, because age comes into play, and then your life comes into play, and then like shoot, Aaron was the best man at my wedding, which also isn't standard. But it's kind of how our upbringing was, and it kind of just brought us closer together, and I guess for that I'm grateful. But I wish that the darkness along the way didn't have to come with it, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense because it was something that you both, well, all three of you were dealing with at the same time, and it affected you guys, with each individual person. It's going to affect them a little bit differently, but you're still dealing with the same circumstance, so it's going to draw you guys closer because that you guys understood what was really happening. And anybody from on the outside of that, they can have a sense of sympathy and empathy for those who may have had a similar case, but they don't know all of the exact details that you and your brother and your sister did. So that makes total sense, and I get it. But it's amazing to me, Tyler, how when you hear things like this, usually there's a bad ending with that person because they don't know how to deal with it. The pressures have been so monumental on their lives that they let it just overtake everything. That is not you. And you are the most one of the most boisterous people I know. You're always smiling. You're always in a good mood. You have this aura about you. Nobody who knows you on a personal level would have ever in a million years expected you to go through what you call the darkest period of your life. And as you're laying this out, I'm just like, man, this shit is incredible to me, because I would have never guessed. I would have never guessed.
Yeah, that Tyler would have never just jumped on a show and just start talking for you to see. But
Right.
Tyler now is like, when do we do it? Where? When? How many
Right.
times can I do this?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Because I mean, we've been doing this for a while.
Mm-hmm.
If there's ever a time we can sit down and talk, and look, you're busy, you work, you have a family. I'm busy, I work, I have a family, plus everything else that's happening. So to try to get our schedules in alignment is not always the easiest thing. So I just
Absolutely.
alluded to it. Let's talk about your family a little bit, if you don't mind. Um,
Sure.
you're married to Erin,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of talk me through how she came into the picture.
So to quickly back up, because we're right at the point to where my transition happens,
Okay.
so it was going into high school. The junior high was at ninth grade was part of the junior high, and 10th through 12th was the high school. I know every school is kind of different, and so you kind of know what I do for a living. So for everyone else, I'm an electrical engineer. I work for a utility gas company here locally in Michigan, and so naturally, math and science kind of typically turns into my strong suit. And it was in the ninth grade, and I was so busy taking care of of my brother and sister that I was paying no attention to my grades. It just kind of was what it was.
Right.
And I got pulled in, and they had the counselors coming in trying to assess where everyone was going to be going into 10th grade for their other classes, and I got told by the school that, like, well, we're going to put you in applied math going into 10th grade, which would mean that I'm a slower end. I need some help to boost up. And I kind of paused and thinking, what the fuck are you talking about applied math? Like, even though I've had my struggles during junior high, math has always kind of been something that just came easy.
Okay.
And I went to the teacher and say, hey, why did you recommend me in applied math? And she goes, well, you got a D minus. We go, well, I can't argue with that. I mean, if that's the grade, it's the grade. And I go, what's the issue? She goes, well, you haven't turned in a single homework assignment all year. I go, what's my test scores? She goes, well, your lowest test score is a 96%.
Wow.
So I'm kind of like, so you know I know what I'm doing. She goes, yeah, you know what you're doing, but you need to learn responsibility and turning stuff in. Like, also, I can't argue with that. It was kind of so that kind of served as like an ass whooping. Like, it's time to get your shit together, because despite everything, both my dad and my mom instilled the importance of, you got to go to college. And I saw it right on the wall. Like, the thing I wanted to be an engineer since I was 5, because my mom's an engineer, and I saw this slipping away. Like, and I talked like, hey, like I'll turn the homework thing around. Like, but can we agree I know what I'm doing from a academic standpoint? She goes, so I'm going to put a note in that you're a flight risk on homework, but I'll give you the chance. And then that next year, I moved from my mom's to my dad's, which was an improvement in a healthy setting. Details don't matter, but that's what I needed. That's what I needed in my life at that moment. I moved from Sterling Heights down to back down to Monroe, because I was born and raised down here up until the divorce, and then I went to school down here and hit the ground running and went to college and got my degree, and the rest of that's history. And when I moved down here, I knew that this is the last move, the last time I got to move. because I'm coming in as a junior at this point. It's like there's no way I can move again at this point. So and something I dealt with kind of always growing up, new school, not knowing anybody. The bullying would come in, whether it be about my stuttering, whether it be about my height. Like a lot of that's also what kind of shrunk me down, for lack of a better word.
Sure. Yep.
They'll say, you know what? This is where I'm going to graduate. This is where I'm going to live the rest of my life. Time to make the best of it. And I stopped giving a shit. I started owning the height thing, which is what have learned to know now. Like granted, when it's overdone, it bothers me at times, but for the most part, I don't care. Say what you want.
Right.
I stopped caring because I knew that I spent too much time worrying about it, and I spent too much time dicking around and stuff that didn't matter. Like it's time to do what I've always wanted to do and get shit done. And that's kind of what I did. I went to the new school. I'm still bad at English, but it's not important at this point. But I did my stuff, and I started off at the community college, went to university, and the rest is history. The moment I stopped giving a shit on people's opinion is the moment I felt like I kind of was able to start flying on my own. I spent so much time just kind of being stuck in that shell with the divorce and just being like, oh well, just life sucks and that's just kind of what it is. And like, nah, it's time to just start making it what you want it to be.
Amazing, sir. Because what you're saying is a lot of what I talk about each and every week on the podcast. So, and I've gotten feedback where I've had people say this does not relate to real life. What you talked about on this episode is not real, true, or otherwise. And here you are giving me an example of the shit that I talk about on the podcast. And so dude, I had no idea any of this. And I've always had, in spite of the ribbing and the teasing that you and I have between us, there's always been a level of respect. Well, now that's being amplified, and you add in admiration to this whole thing. You are truly, Tyler, you are such an inspiration here. And it's amazing to me how you have laid out so far during the course of this episode various challenges, various roadblocks, various anything that we could use as excuses to keep ourselves down. You have used this as motivation to improve your situation. Do you understand that? Do you have a grasp at this point of what a true inspiration you really are?
Before you saying it, I never really thought about it. I just kind of just chalked it up as just kind of just dealing with it and moving on. But I always know there's other people that are struggling more than I do. So I always just kind of chalk it up as it is what it is, and you move on. Right. I never really thought about it being some sort of major inspiration or anything like that.
No, man. There's going to be people that watch this, and they're going to start reevaluating certain things in their lives just based on your example. So that's pretty remarkable, brother. I mean, it really is. It really is. And wow, God damn, man. I'm intrigued. Tell me more. I mean, so you've overcome this. You put yourself through college. I assume you got a pretty decent job out of college. I mean, or does that come later on?
No, it was right out of college. When I was going to college, I got a good internship at DT and never left.
Okay.
And
so that's where you're at now still.
Yep, I'm with DT here locally for anyone watching locally, and I work for the gas side, so it's more up north. The pipelines are more up north and stuff, but a lot of our central offices are down here, and that's where I've been, and I love what I'm doing. I can wholeheartedly tell you that I'm going to retire there. So
that's fantastic.
If I didn't, something's gone wrong.
Sure.
And And that's what kind of leads to the more later part of my life. Like we talked about earlier being the worst part of my life, but the next step here would make that become the second worst part of my life, because what worse was yet to come, as you know, and I'm about to get into here. Yep. So, as you mentioned earlier, me and Erin met while we were in college. She's also an engineer for DTE. We met down in Toledo, and after 4 years together, I proposed, and then the next year, on the day that we started dating, we got married on the exact day, which you got to be a part of, and so now we've been married. In March will be 4 years already, believe it or not.
Wow, has it been that long? I remember I remember being there like it was yesterday.
I know, 4 years married, 9 years together,
Wow.
and short in the grand scheme of everything, but I mean, time flies.
So, I mean, when you guys met, did you have any classes? You know, did you have the same classes, or how did you guys?
We had just one. We had just one class, but that was after before we started dating. We had that one class. We had met online, because at the time I was so nose deep into school. Then we got definitely want to start dating again, because I just gotten out of a breakup. But as far as the time to go out, do the normal, go out to bars, do this and that, like I was commuting back and forth, so, which is about a 45-minute drive from where I live. So I'll try the online thing, and after a couple bad dates, I'm like, this isn't going well. Sure. And then all of a sudden, Aaron comes along and start hanging out. Next thing you know, a couple years have gone by, and that's been the best part of my life up until most recently.
Sure.
And here we are, going on 9 years married, and things are better than I could have ever hoped for.
She's absolutely fantastic. You know, any time that I've had the opportunity to talk to her, nothing but sweet. And you could tell you guys really complement one another. You guys have a very strong, a very inspiring bond between the two of you. You know, you guys were together for a long time. When you guys decided that it was going to be you two and nobody else mattered, you were going to, you know, build this life as a couple. Did you always want kids? Did kids come up later? What was that?
So from a personality standpoint, me and Erin, we talk about the polar opposites, and we are kind of polar opposites, but in the best complimenting kind of way. She's not the showboaty, go out there, want to be in public. She's a homebody, and she enjoys being that. But somehow she's decided, like, oh, this is I can deal with this little asshole enough to spend the rest of my life with him. I don't. Excuse me. I'm not a crier. I've been to a handful of funerals and just various emotional things, and I don't know what it is. It's tears aren't the first emotion that hits me. But you were at the wedding that day, and I couldn't get through my vows. Like, I'm sitting there going, what the fuck's happening here? But it speaks volumes for the importance that she's become in my life. I can't explain it.
You don't have to, because the look on your face as you talk about her, it says it all, brother. You just have this unique look on your face right now. Every time you mention her name or you are referring to her, it resonates, man, and it comes through the camera. Like, you don't have to say a damn word, because it's already there. So I mean,
you mentioned kids.
Yeah, I was just going to say we're going to kind of go in the trenches here a little bit, are we not?
Yes, we are.
All right, take me through this journey.
So I had always wanted kids. My dad's always been big on kids, and I grew up with a daycare, as I had mentioned earlier, and kids was always something that was always in the cards. Like, going through school, like, I'm having 3 kids. It is what it is. I'm having 3. And
why 3?
I don't know. I always thought I wanted one of each, and I thought growing up with me, my brother, my sister, I thought it was a good compliment.
Okay.
I guess I don't have too much of an argument on why three is just something that I just kind of built in my head and just kind of just what I created in my head
Okay.
and went with. And upon first meeting Erin, she goes, kids, sure, maybe, probably not. But
Okay.
then as time went on together, she's like, and she'd see like my cousins having kids and whatnot. She's like, yeah, I could do the kids thing. Let's do this. And that was probably about a year in. And trying to think, this was 2014. I was going to be graduating college in 6 months at this point. Like, okay, let's do this. And we weren't married yet. I mean, we weren't engaged yet, but I already had bought the ring and I was planning to propose, and I was going to be graduating soon. It's like, okay, by the time anything would happen, we'd be out on our own in our house, and we'd be fine. And so we, I don't want to say we started trying, but we stopped preventing.
Okay.
So I mean, at that point, it's like, okay, you can't really hold anything to law just because if you're not trying, you can't really say there's a problem because you're not going through the motions of. So we didn't really think much of it, and then the engagement happened, the wedding happened, the house happened, the wedding happened, and that at that point we had started trying. It's all of a sudden at this point fast forward, we're 3.5 years of actually trying, and to no avail. I'm thinking, what the fuck's going on here? And I started to internalize this idea that I'm not having kids. Like this goal that something I wanted to do since I was little isn't going to happen. And because you don't hear of people not being able to have kids. What I've learned to realize is no one talks about it.
Right.
So you think it's this rare thing that just doesn't happen. If it happens, it's just because like I've always known like, hey, well if you're infertile, sorry. But and this is where Erin comes in. She's been such a major help in that. And she's like, well, no, there's things we can do. And then so I got tested, and they come back saying, well, yeah, you got a problem. Your swimmers aren't doing what they're supposed to do. Like your counts there, they're definitely they're what they're supposed to be, but in simple terms, they don't know how to travel. So there's like this stagnant in place, and that was a major problem. And I come to find out that I had a it's not a disease, but I can't think of the word, but I had a condition. That's the word. In which I'm gonna get a little graphic, but not too bad on you though. Where you have
an open forum here, brother.
Where you have enlarged veins in the area. So in turn, because there's more going on there, it keeps the area much more warm. Basically taking the temperature of your area much higher than needed for healthy sperm. Essentially killing most of them and like we're disabling the rest. And I'm thinking, oh, so is that it? Are we adopting now? Because I mean, I still determined to have kids, and I would have gone to adoption if it needed to be. And they go, no. Like, there's a surgery. Basically, they go in and cut the extra veins out to just kind of make it as it should be.
Right.
And like, okay, let's do this. And for anyone who's gotten a vasectomy, the way it's explained to me is the recovery time is very similar.
Mm-hmm.
The procedure is very identical.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just cutting here, they're cutting there.
Right.
And so I'm sitting. I remember and they put you under for it. And I remember coming home. My dad had taken me because Erin had to work, and I told her, don't take time off. I have someone to take me. I come home, and she goes, how are you feeling? And I remember saying, this isn't fucking worth it. Because I was sore.
Sure.
And then I slept in the living room for 4 days because I didn't feel
Mhm.
comfortable going up the stairs. And so during that process, Aaron had also gotten because they say typically if there's a problem, it's traditionally with the mom.
Mhm.
So Aaron was actually shocked when they said that I had a problem. So I had gotten mine taken care of, and then she just because we had the time to do it. And I was recovering. I was at least a good month and a half from being able to do anything significant.
Sure.
She had gotten tested, and they go, well, you're polycystic. You have your regular cycles, and because for anyone who doesn't know, you don't just get pregnant. And if you do, you hit the lucky time. But typically, you need to have ovulation. That's like your critical time to get pregnant. And if you're not in that window, it's extremely unlikely. So for those of you that have gotten pregnant in one go, and you're good at picking the right time. That's all I got to say. And they said that because of the irregular cycles, you're essentially not ovulating at all.
Mm.
So it became me feeling like like hell because I feel like I've been delaying us meeting our goal of having a baby for 3.5 4 years. To now Aaron's feeling the same way, and we're both just in this sulking. In the last 3 years, we were just sitting like we're both kind of this mode like I don't think it's going to happen. And so she started meeting with doctors, and medicine's an incredible thing. I didn't realize how much we can do in the medicine world until this all happened. They were able to give her a medicine that kind of regulated everything. They were able to give her a medicine that told her when to ovulate and stuff. And they said, well, with this medicine and with Tyler's surgery, you guys could start trying naturally again, and you guys should be able to make it happen. Um, so there's a process called IUI. The short of it is they take my stuff and basically put it where it needs to go.
Sure.
And it typically it's a little pricey, but DT's insurance basically said, well, we cover it fully. So we're sitting here like so basically doing the IUI would basically double the percent chance of it happening versus naturally. And so we're saying like so we're like, do you want to go a few months naturally? And then we made a decision like, you know what? We've been waiting 4 years. Insurance is going to cover it. Fuck it.
Right.
So we went forward with the procedure, and their rule is because not everyone takes to IUI. It doesn't work for everybody. And it was first one, and they say they'll do 3 until they say no, it's not going to work. First one, nothing. Second month, nothing. Third month, then they had prepped us like at this point either you guys can try naturally or the next step would be IVF, which IVF no insurance covers, and that's like 15 grand per try. And
Wow.
most couples take 2 or 3 tries, and I don't care what you're doing. That's a lot of money for anybody.
Sure.
And we just that IVF wasn't in the cards.
Mm-hmm.
We're a nervous wreck. And third one, and Aaron's nervous. He just pregnancy test every day because we're both just like antsy. And I think it was day 5 afterwards. You see that little line just ever so slightly, and we're like, is that no? If you squint at it, there's a line. I don't know if that counts. Because we were so used to just disappointment that we were just trying to convince ourselves that no, don't get excited. It's probably nothing.
Right.
They go, well, and that night she did another test and it was darker. We're thinking, well, maybe. And she ended up doing a doctor's appointment, and then go in and goes, yep, you're pregnant. And Aaron's like, she looks at me like she's expecting like this, like just like theatrical nonsense that everyone's grown to expect with me. And I'm just sitting there like this. Like, I don't know if it was just I didn't believe them or if I was just in disbelief. Just look, like I had 4.5 years of heartbreak in my head, and then even counting in like everything I've gone through early in my life, like I've grown to expect things to not work out.
Right.
So in my head, I'm like, okay, we're pregnant, but you hear a lot of horror stories of things not happening. Like in that first trimester, shit goes wrong all the time, and it's perfectly normal.
Right.
So I'm sitting here like not trying. I want to be excited because we both been wanting. I'm sitting like trying to just like, okay, like let's be realistic. Like there's still a long road left. And then just fast forward some time. A few weeks gone by. Now we're all of a sudden we're finding out the gender. They go, which at one point we wanted to be surprised, but 4 years later of nonsense, like fuck it, just tell us.
Right.
Like we're past anticipation. We just want to know what the hell's going on. And we found the gender. We found out it's a boy. And then another month goes by, and then Aaron finds out that well, I mean, it was probably before the gender. No, it was just after the gender. We had found out that Aaron's got gestational diabetes, which is pretty common. But it happens to a lot of people. It's completely outside of anyone's control. I mean, it's something that the baby themselves control, and that's like I'm sitting here like, here we go.
Right.
Here's that dagger to the back, and Erin, like the fucking rock star she is, handled being able to change her diet on a whim, being pregnant, like it was a switch. Like I know I could have done it the way she did it. She was a fucking rock star. Like I can't support her enough on that. She started handling that, and then a few months go by. Baby's getting bigger. You were actually one of the going back. You were one of the first people I told.
Yep.
Because we had talked here and there about everything going on. I had to leave a couple shows early to go to the clinic and do some of the stuff, and so you understood what was going on. And I remember it was the awards show we were at in Fenton, and Aaron came with us, and we pulled you guys aside and we told you, and your look was just amazing. You just kind of you just went.
Well, I kind of knew. I didn't know all the details, obviously, but I knew you guys were trying and things weren't working out. So when things started happening, now we were just, Carrie and I both were just like, this couldn't happen to a better couple, because we knew how much it meant. And again, Tyler, when you talk about things of this magnitude, of this genre, you just have this look about you. You have this aura about you, and you can feel how important this is. You have a very descriptive face. You were definitely somebody that you can read pretty well if you know what you're looking for. But when you talk about Aaron and you talk about this journey, and I mean, you can feel how personal and how important this whole chapter of your life was. Given everything that you had in your mind expected, you were kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop. What's going to be the fallout here? Anybody that goes through the process of the day that the kid is born, there's a number of different emotions going. I mean, I know I was a nervous wreck, and we didn't deal with nearly the. I mean, we had challenges with Austin, but nothing like what you guys had gone through. So I can only imagine that your nerves were on overload on that day. Take me through. I mean, was it something that you guys? I don't know how much detail you want to go into this, but I mean, was having natural childbirth an option, or did you have to schedule a C-section so you knew what day he was coming? Or talk me through that a little bit.
So he was due on December 15th of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Just after Thanksgiving, we had A pretty bad scare. We rushed up to the hospital and they said, well, it's possible he could be coming tonight. Because he started to really fuck with Aaron's blood pressure.
Okay.
And they sent us home. He wasn't coming, and then the next few weeks went by, and Aaron's blood pressure started to become an issue. Because of which, because he was starting to get pretty big, they scheduled us for they scheduled to induce. So it was basically we're still doing natural. This is what we're doing. So we go on induce day. I believe, and that was the second show I've ever missed for you. Was Christmas Clash? Like Jason, like we're being induced. I can't.
Right. I remember that conversation, and you felt so bad, and that was one of the few times I got pissed at you. I'm like, what the fuck do you feel bad about? Your kid's coming. You don't. This will be here next month. Don't worry about this.
I'm sitting in the show before, trying to help you figure out how you're going to set up the cage for Christmas Clash. You're like, Tyler, just go home.
Yeah. Get out of here.
So we go to the hospital and they start the inducement, and 30 hours later, Aaron was doing fine, but Avery had decided, fuck this. He dropped his heart rate, which got me nervous. Like, oh, here's that shoe.
Yeah.
Like, here we go. Like Aaron's blood pressure was already high. His heart rate dropped. Okay, so they said they came in and say, so here's what, and they're so calm about it too. Like I want to just come in and just tell me how it is. They're just so fucking calm.
Right.
But it's like, so we're gonna do a C-section, and we're like, well, when's that gonna happen? Like now. So they kind of told us like, well, if they're saying now, like something's definitely wrong, because essentially, Aaron's body was doing her part, but Avery basically said, nah, I'm good here.
Right.
So we went to the emergency section and went through that process. And the one thing I remember from that is, and they have you behind the curtains, so you can't really see what's going on. So I'm up with Aaron, and you hear him cry, and the waterworks started. I'm trying to hold him off right now, even. And again, I mentioned crying earlier. It's not a thing I do. You hear him cry, and also you hear him go up. And so what happened was he wasn't ready. He had latched on to something in Aaron's body. He's like, nope, not coming, not time. Leave me be.
Right.
They had to pry his hands off of her intestines or whatever he was holding on to at that point. He was determined to stay put, probably because it was warm.
Right. And
you heard him cry, and Aaron was pretty drugged up. I'm glad, because the idea of going through that process myself sounds terrifying. But it's funny because Aaron was like falling asleep as she's being cut open. They took care of her. Like, I'm glad she didn't have, and her recovery from the C-section itself was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
The next day she was sitting there, like just bent over. You probably shouldn't be changing his diaper. Because I happen to walk to the bathroom, I walk out, and she's here sitting like, "What the fuck are you doing?" But he ended up being super healthy. He had to spend a few hours under the lights. If anyone's familiar with jaundice,
yeah,
which is pretty normal for a light tone baby.
Well, both my kids, we had to go through that too.
It's scary seeing that machine for the first time, though.
Yeah.
But and then they're like, okay, we're gonna put them under the lights, and at hour 11, they're starting to give us our discharge paperwork. We're signing off for Avery, and they check Aaron's blood pressure one last time. They go, oh, and we both kind of go, what do you mean up? Like, we've been here 2.5 days at this point.
Right.
They go, I need to get the doctor. Doctor comes in and says, yeah, Miss Shanteau, your blood pressure is 200 over 100.
Wow.
And we're like, excuse me? And they like, we're gonna check it again in a half hour. They come back like, yep, it's 210 over 100.
Huh.
And they're like, do you feel okay? Because I guess they say if it's that high, you're at like seizure levels, and like you should feel your blood pressure is that high. It's like, no, I feel great. It's like, well, you're not going home today. And like, we're gonna give you some medicines that normally help bring it down. Next morning, you're probably out of here. Next morning, throughout the night, I was getting checked. Like, no change, no change, no change. Got to the point. So now we're 2.5 days later from that. We ended up spending a week in the hospital, and the doctor came and said, we're going to give you this other medicine that we call this is like the emergency life saving pill. Like, and don't put it that way. Like, it's like they needed this thing to drop, and they said, I just want to see it under 160, which is still very high. The fact that they would have been happy with 160 just kind of speaks volumes for someone who's never even come close to high blood pressure. She's always been like 120 over 80, and that brought it down from 200 to 190. Like, they would typically expected this to bring someone down to like 110. Like, if anything, bring it too low. And they tried a couple other things, and another day later, and you got it down to 140. And like, okay, we're gonna send you home. It seems like this is working, and at this point, we've been in the hospital for 6 days. We come home, and Avery's basically a week old already.
Right.
They just and Aaron had a couple of nervous breakdowns in the hospital. Just like, we want to go home, we want to start being a family, and we don't know what's going on. Like, you hear of that level of blood pressure, and it's supposed to make you nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron suffers from anxiety anyway, and I think part of it too was every time that nurse would come in and check her blood pressure, she'd get herself all revved up because she already knows it's going to be high. They got to the point they stopped even showing us the blood pressure. They turned the monitor. And then we eventually got to come home, and she was on blood pressure meds for like 4 or 5 weeks, and they wanted her checking every 2 hours. And eventually it started. You saw it starting to, and they eventually got to pull her off the meds. But watching that happen, like, I went from just like happiest day of your life, your son's born that you've both been wanting for 5 years now, to his, I mean, like better saying, like, is your wife coming home with you? Like, that type of levels is dangerously scary.
Sure.
So it started to settle in like day 3 or 4 of the hospital. Like, what's going on? Like, I was so worried about that shoe dropping when it came to Avery. It never even crossed either of our minds that it'd be the other shoe. And we both got to the point of kind of being terrified and stuff. And you were one of the few that I kept in the loop. I remember texting you saying, "Hey, baby's here. We're going to be here a few extra days. This is going on." I don't think I gave you incredible detail, but I told you that things were looking a little scary, but we're still here, and I'd keep you posted. I eventually told you when we got home, but it was really terrifying. It's like the scariest I've been in my life.
The good news is that there's a happy ending here, and
Yeah.
the other shoe didn't drop. So, just, man, Tyler, just such an amazing story. This whole thing has been an amazing story.
He's 10 months old today.
Isn't that something?
I mean, it'll be. I mean, by the time this airs, it'll be a few days later. But
yeah. I mean, we talked a little bit, before I hit the record button, and we're gonna put a bow on this, but we talked about, he is now 10 months old and starting the whole walking thing, and I can only imagine, and that was before you started us on this journey. And during parts of what you were talking about, I went back to an hour and a half ago before I hit the record button, and we were talking about you watching him starting to walk, and you're going through all this, I'm like, this is just incredible. And we as parents, we look at our kids with awe, right? I mean, we had a hand in making this human, but and it's the most intimate and the most personal thing that you will ever do in your life. But and it varies from person to person. So I know how I felt with these milestones with both my kids. My kids are still pretty young, in the grand scheme of things. Um, so they're starting to hit, these milestones for you guys. You're at the beginning of your journey here. And I made the joke, well, once Avery starts, running, it's all downhill from there, brother.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But that is the happy ending to the story, because it could have went the other direction, in a couple of ways here. So as we put a bow on this, brother, I just wanted to say a couple things, and I kind of touched on it earlier in the program. But I mean, first and foremost, you are such an inspiration. You are such, I mean, you have laid out this incredible story that I don't think a lot of people would have had the strength or the resolve to go through. They just would have thrown their hands up and said, pissed on it, I can't deal with this. I can't handle this. And you saw what the brink of that existence looked like, and you said, hell no, I'm not doing that. So you've been able to trudge your way forward with every obstacle that has been thrown in your path, and you've overcome that. And
I'm stubborn too. That's part of it.
well, listen, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. But you have the presence of mind to know that that's not you. You would not accept that. You would not say, okay, this is the cards that I'm being dealt, and I'm not happy with it. But instead of just saying screw it, I'll just accept it. You went through the motions, you put in the work, you did everything that you were supposed to do in order to overcome these. And I said it before, you are a real life example of the various things that I talk about on my shows. And I cannot wait to get this show up, and because people are going to watch this and it's going to inspire them. And you deserve so much praise and so much adulation and so much respect that you are a very likable guy. You're a very popular guy. A lot of that falls in a public realm in terms of professional wrestling, but that is a character that you play. But that is an extension of who you are, just turned up a little bit. That's why you see the success in the ring. But more importantly, man, you have opened your fans' eyes to this whole different side of Tyler Dean, who is really Tyler Shanteau. And it's just, I just can't. I didn't know half of this shit before you and I talked, and I'm just, you are a true inspiration, and I can't say it enough. And man, as we wrap this up here, is there any like parting words? Is there anything else that you want to throw out there real quick?
Well, I mean, you talk about that bow on top, and just kind of some of the post opponents that come with everything. They deemed Aaron to be healthy, and granted, issues could arise going forward on certain things, but they've deemed her healthy enough, and they're confident that her OB would be comfortable with us going for a second.
Okay.
And I had mentioned the number 3 before.
Right.
And that was and that having 3 was always based on having kids when we first kind of initially thought 4 or 5 years ago. So that number's probably changed to more of a 2.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron and I are both comfortable in going that route. I mean, granted, and if the next one were to go just completely seamless, which is unlikely, just certain issues tend to be there when it comes to that when it comes to pregnancy. We're looking at next summer going for number 2.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we certainly hope that everything turns out as well as can be expected, because like you said, you never know what can happen, right? I mean, that's the fun part about life. You can never plan for it. You just
because kids are amazing, but it wouldn't be worth the risk if of losing her. I mean, that's
right.
first and foremost. I mean, but they think we're okay, and that's the route we want to go. But I mean, the second one ends up being an issue. That's going to be it. I mean, 99% chance that's going to be it.
Right. Well, Tyler, thank you so much, brother, for coming on the show this week. It was an incredible story. I know it's very personal, and you certainly didn't have to do that. You didn't have to go in as deep as you did, man. But I'm glad that you did, because it gives me a better appreciation for you and for your fans. It gives them a new layer of respect for you as a person, which will translate to how they feel about you in your future as a wrestling star. So, brother, I thank you very much for coming on here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, Jason, pleasure's mine. I really appreciate having me on. This has been an awesome chat. I'm feel really good. I'm just kind of going through it all, just thinking it back in my head. This was good. This was awesome.
It really was. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much for tuning in this week to watch the show. If you're digging what we're doing, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. You'll get notified each and every time a new episode drops. And don't forget, the Clouse to the Heart podcast drops every Tuesday morning at midnight and a half an hour later on Spotify. He is Tyler Dean, or Tyler Shanteau, however you know him. I am Jason Clouse. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on Clouse to the Heart here on YouTube.com.